عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Inshallah, today we would be reminding ourselves of some of our basic duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Muslims, and that which happens to be from the fundamentals of our deen. From the fundamentals of our deen, which is popularly described by the scholars as a tawheed, unification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After thanking Allah for protecting our lives and for making us Muslims, for making us humans, for making us humans still alive, having spared our lives, and thirdly, making us believers in His path, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if we were to look at all of these mercies of Allah and bounties of Him, we will not be able to exhaust the limit regarding counting them. Having said that, the primary essence of our creation, of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made put us in existence, is to worship Him, ibadah to Him, to worship Him. And which means our existence in this world is none other than to come and please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If that is already understood, and we know that when something is described as the essence of something, or the reason why something would be, then when it fails to fulfill that purpose, then it's as if that thing in itself becomes useless, and the existence outrightly will not be fulfilled if it does not fulfill that goal which it was created for, or why it actually exists. So if we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to worship Him, it means if we do not perfect worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the essence of our existence in the first instance would actually be futile, would not actually materialize to anything. Having said this, what is Tawheed? If we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to worship Him, and we know that one of the fundamental aspects of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to unify Him in worship. The scholars say popularly that Tawheed is to unify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the unification of Allah. That is to make Allah one and only, unique, where we give all of the servitude to Him, whether regarding the fact that He's the one who created us and has power over all things, or the fact that He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is He who has the right to be worshipped. That is unifying Him regarding worship. Or thirdly, unifying him regarding His names and attributes. So, which is the three aspects where Tawheed actually covers. But the book we would just be doing a little review on, which is Kitab al-Tawheed by Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah. We'll be looking at the chapter where is discussed Ma ja'a fi anna ba'da hadhihi al-umma ya'budu al-awthan. That which had been narrated regarding the fact that a part of this ummah would worship the deities, would actually fall into idol worship. Babu ma ja'a fi anna ba'da hadhihi al-umma ya'budu al-awthan. And this is worthy of note and worthy of mentioning, especially at times we find ourselves where when we look at the challenges facing the Muslim Ummah, one asks questions that why is it that people who actually haven't known the truth might still find themselves in falsehood, or do take to that which to us, well, alhamdulillah, is apparently false. To us, we know that, oh, this is actually batil. This is not what is expected of one. This is not what is expected of a servant of Allah, of a believer. Yet we find those who claim to be Muslims and who identify with Islam, they still fall into some of these errors, or they do that which can be termed to be actually unheard of or unthinkable in our own sight. That how can somebody, after laying claim to be a Muslim, will still be falling into shirk? One of the answers to this, and to so many other questions of the fitna and trials which we find us, the ummah in, or find the Muslim ummah generally in today, is that which this sheikh is trying to answer through this particular chapter. That as much as we might be amazed, we should not also be totally surprised, and it should not be a shock that we find in this ummah Muslims who would fall into idol worship, claiming to still be within the fold of Islam, but who would actually fall into that which the idolaters also fall into, despite the fact that they will lay claim to Islam. So he started with the verse of the Quran, and he said, وَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا نَصِيبًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْجِبْتِ وَالطَّاغُوتِ وَيَقُولُونَ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا هَؤُلَاءِ أَهْدَى مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا سَبِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا نَصِيبًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. Haven't you seen the people who have been given a part of the book? They have been given a portion of the book. And these are the Ahlul Kitab. We call them Ahlul Kitab. Scholars of Islam would say they are called the people of the book because prophets were sent to them before our nation, before the advent of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Prophets were sent to them, and books were also revealed to some of these prophets. So they are people who have actually gone astray after being guided, after the message had actually come to them, unlike the mushrikun or the other folds of kuffar, whom we might say had not had the opportunity at all to, or that prophets perhaps they did not lay claim to any prophet. Let me put it in that way. People who do not lay claim to any prophet, or who do not lay claim to any of the books that were revealed. But these Ahlul Kitab are people whom books were actually revealed to them. And these are, like we know them, the Nasara and the Yahud, the Jews and the Christians. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them, haven't you seen this portion of these people? You see them having faith and believing in that which is outright falsehood. They say Egypt here is sihr, magic, or the likes, or similar things of falsehood and make believe and deceit that the people of Shirk actually use to cajole and convince those who follow their path. They have faith and they believe in this falsehood and fallacy and taghut and in other forms of idols and other things that are worshipped other than Allah. And they say to those who are outright disbelievers, the Mufassirun say this was perhaps reviewed regarding Ka'b and Ashraf when he went to Mecca, and after the hijrah of the Rasul to Medina, and the Islam had been established in Medina. So of course he felt bad and he felt pain because it was from the leading images among the Yahud at that time. He was rich, he was a poet, he was influential among them, he was from among the nobles among the Jews. So the president of the Muslims in Medina cut short all of what was accruable to him regarding authority and honor, and of course it is known the kind of enmity that the Yahud we have for the believers. Allah told us about them that those who detest you the most, you find those who hate you the most among those al-Yahud are those who are actually the Jews. They show all sorts of animosity and enmity against you. And inshallah, this part of what we would mention, what led to this animosity? Because there were people who were guided and they were actually favored, other than the fact, except for the fact that they did not fulfill the conditions of this favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them, and so they were debased. So whenever they see somebody who enjoys a similar status out of envy, so they envy the believers and they envy the ummah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is why they found themselves where they found themselves. So Ka'b and Ashraf, when they went to Makkah, the Quraysh, the Mushrikul Makkah, the idolaters in Makkah were asking him, what can you say about us and Muhammad? What would be your judgment? I think you must have heard about all the tussle and the issues between us. And now he has migrated and come to your city over there in Medina, in Yathrib. What would you say about us and about him? Ka'b and Ashraf, who was supposed to be a knowledgeable person, and from the Ahlul Kitab meaning those who believe in the existence of God and also believe in the fact that there's a day of judgment, and they have a prophet who was sent to them even when they have belied the prophet and they have gone away from that which the prophet had taught them. It's sufficient, or at least this is somebody who knows the truth, except for the fact that, of course, they do not identify with the truth which they know. So rather than for him to come out and say that which is fair and balanced regarding the Rasul and Islam, he decided to conceal the truth, which is one of the properties of the Jews anyway. So what did he say? He said, I do not see any good thing about them, except that you are better than them. You are a people who used to seal the bond of kinship. You are people who tie the bond of kinship. You are good to kids and king. Oh, these believers only abandoned you. They've severed the bond of kinship, and they've done all sorts of evil by that which they've actually that has actually transpired between you and them. That was his judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in response to this statement and judgment of his, was informing the believers, don't be bothered about such criticism. Alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab yu'minuna bil jibti wa taghut wa yaquluna lil ladhina kafaru haula'i ahda min alladhina amanu sabila. Now this brings to mind that because the scholars of Islam will tell us that look, the verses of the Quran are not meant just to be revealed for the sake of perhaps who they might have been revealed because of. Rather, the lessons are to be picked in these verses generally. They tell us that the verses are not just by the Asbab al-Nuzul, Innamal Ibra, is not just by the Asbab al-Nuzul, but actually by the generality of the benefits we can actually get from this verse and the verses of the Quran. So the lesson we're picking here is that it won't be right for a believer, even because of perhaps he has one or two differences with a people, haven't knowing the truth, then one begins to certify and give credence to falsehood just because you are not in good terms with the people who you know to be upon the truth. So this should not lead one to such kind of judgment. وقوله تعالى قل هل أنبئكم بشر من ذلك مثوبة عند الله من لعنه الله وغضب عليه وجعل منهم الكردة والخنازل وعبد الطاغوت. So Sheikh Ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah went on in this book to say, should I, citing a verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, should I inform you, هل أنبئكم بشر من ذلك مثوبة من عند الله? Should I inform you also, responding back to the Jews and the Munafiqun, should I inform you, all believers, of a people that are worse in status, in the sight of Allah, and they are the people that Allah has cursed and Allah's anger is upon. وَجَعَلَ مِنْهُمْ الْكِرَدَ وَخَنَازِرَ, and Allah had made a part of them, had changed them into kirada wal khanazir, from the monks, from the apes and the monkeys, the swines, and from the swine, from the pig, he had converted some of them and caused them to be Abadat Taghut. And some of them you find who actually worship idols, who fall into idol worship. Who are these people? They are none other than those who've been mentioning. Those whom after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had guided them, they stayed away from the guidance of Allah. They are a people that Allah had given knowledge, but rather than for them to act upon knowledge, they act as if they were people of ignorance. May Allah protect us from such. So the point we're making here is, as believers, we make effort to learn our deen, and we try as much as possible to know what our responsibilities are regarding towards Islam and being Muslims. And of course, being a Muslim is something that is only rewardable when one does it by choice. Many are people that want Islam to be adjusted or be designed to suit their own desires. Many are people who would want Islam to be edited, modified to fit their own desires. The first question we ask is that if somebody has chosen Islam as a path, as a deen, and has chosen to be a Muslim, and being a Muslim is Islamu lillahi bi tawheed, is to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in unifying Him only and making Him unique regarding that, where you give all of servitude and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then if one has done that willingly, then why should one query the provisions of the Sharia that was made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding one's affairs? A Muslim is not the one who queries Allah regarding his judgments. A Muslim does not query Allah regarding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had enjoined or has ordained or has commanded. Rather, a Muslim is the one who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. Even in putting forth that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, had made prohibited upon him, or that which Allah made compulsory upon him, he seeks Allah's help and Allah's help in making it easy upon himself, rather than rejecting the provisions of the Sharia or the injunction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the points where we're actually picking from these verses. Why? Because the Yahud, the Jews, did other than this. They did contrary to this. They were guided, and yet knowledge came to them, but they acted in the other, in contrary to that which they had actually learned, or that which had actually come to them of the truth. So this verse in particular talks about the Ashab al-Salt, the people of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among the past nations, among the Jews, who were given an instruction to take the day of Saturday, to take it as a day of a break, a day devoted only to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to engage in all of their mundane activities. They were predominantly fishermen who would go towards the seashore, or maybe the rivers, the water bodies around them, to fish. But the instruction was that they should stay away on a Saturday from such of work, and they should take that as the day of dedication and worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather than for them to stick to this instruction, they went all ahead to find a way, trying to dribble, to find a way around the Sharia. So when they were told not to come out to work on Saturday or to fish on Saturday, they found a way of circumventing the Sharia, where they would put nets on the river, only to come back on a Sunday morning to pick their nets and say, after all, we didn't come on a Saturday. The net caught what they wanted to catch. We were not the one who came to actually fish and the like. That was how they were going to circumventing the Sharia. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them for that. Even among those that were punished were those who saw them committing these crimes, were happy with them committing it, even when they did not partake in actually committing these crimes. When the fitna and the Allah's punishment on those who used to fall into this error came, it went general. It encompassed those who did it and those who saw the evil being done without condemning it. And they were the people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed, and they were actually changed into apes and swines, into monkeys and swines. Of course, these are not the monkeys that we find in existence today, like we found in the hadith that the Rasul sallallahu was asked, "Anil kira wal khanazir ahiya mimma masakha Allah ta'ala," and the Rasul responded, "Inna Allah lam yahliku qawman aw qala lam yamsakh qawman fajala laha naslan wa uqban." Allah did not curse a people and haven't changed them to a form, and would still make them have a lineage that would transcend after that. Meaning the apes and the pigs and the monkeys and the apes we find in existence today are not from the descendants of those that were caused and transformed into that shape initially. So at the end of that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned وَعَبَدَ الطَّاغُوتِ. Because of their transgression, Allah made a part of them, a portion of them, to fall into idol worship. They were people that were guided, that were supposed to be upon Tawheed. But because they acted contrary to the knowledge that was given to them, they finally found themselves in shirk. So, which is one of the reasons why these verses were cited at the beginning of this chapter. I mean, one of the ways in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can punish someone for not being steadfast upon that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded, from not taking to Allah's injunctions subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that he might be punished by finally being left to go astray, or being actually left to go into shirk. Like Allah has told us in another verse of the Quran, فَلْيَعْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَنْ تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Warn those who take to disregarding and disobeying the law and the instructions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They like to go against the sunnah of the Rasul. They like to confront the teachings of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and do contrary to his commandments. Warn them and فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَنْ تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ. That perhaps as a consequence of these their actions, fitna might finally strike them, or yusibahum adhabun alim. May Allah protect us from such. And what is the fitna here? The fitna here is that they might finally fall into shirk. So the point we're picking again is that one of the things we benefit from being steadfast is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us hidayah. He grants us the tawfiq to still continue upon that steadfastness. And one of the consequences of not being steadfast and trying to shut one eye to that which has come to one of knowledge and understanding, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might punish such a person with the trials of faith and for that deviation other than even that which he had done deliberately by himself. Now, so it goes ahead. He said, the Rasul also told us, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that تَتَّبِعَنَّ سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ حَذْوَ الْقُذَّ بِالْقُذَّ حَتَّى لَوْ دَخَلُوا هُجْرَ الضَّبِّ لَدَخَلْتُمُوهُ. You are going to follow the path of those who came before you, bit by bit, from every inch which they move, just trying to copy them exactly in everything they do. حَتَّى لَوْ دَخَلُوا هُجْرَ الضَّبِّ, until if they were to enter the whole of the dub. The dub is a popular lizard around the Arab Peninsula. It's called um, the scaled tail lizard or thereabout. So if they were to enter the whole of this lizard, you were to also copy them. Our fi riwayatin hatta law kana fihim man yati ummahu alaniya lakana fi ummati man yaf'al dhalik, such that even if you were to find anyone amongst them who used to approach and have intimacy with his wife and with his mother in the public, you will find from among my ummah one who also follows them in doing such. And this is the order of the day. You hardly find a distinctive feature between the disbelievers and the believers in the way people go about their lives today. Where ordinarily a Muslim, ليس المسلم كالكافر أفنجعل المسلمين أفنجعل المسلمون كالكافرين أو كما قال أو كالمشركين. Would you place side by side the believer and the non-believer? ما لكم كيف تحكمون? But ordinarily, what is expected is that the believer should not in any way be similar in attitude and the way he comports himself and he goes about his life just like the disbeliever. Except that today we are finding this being the order of the day, where there's so much semblance and similarity between the way we live our life and that which these believers also do. So the Rasul said, this is from the signs of that which you find at the end of time. You find people who will do that and they will copy those who came before you, arm's length by arm's length, bit by bit, until whatever of the heinous crimes they committed, you also follow them in committing. And the companions were to ask, are these the Jews and the Christians? Faman. And if not them, then who? Who would I actually intend if not them? Imam Bukhari and Muslim reported this hadith. We find a similar verse of the Quran, very similar to such which we have actually mentioned or which we actually cited at the beginning of this chapter we are discussing, that a part of this ummah would find who would actually be worshipping the awthan, the idols. Let us also mention here that the word wathan is something that generally describes all of that which is worshipped beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a similar word used is sanam. And sanam is that which has the shape. All of that which is worshipped besides Allah, but it has the structure, like a calvin. It has a shape, a human form. Then we call that a sanam. But that which might not be tangible from amongst that which people worship besides Allah, then that is considered generally to be the wathan. So what we're talking about is not necessary that that falling into shirk might particularly imply bowing down to an idol. From among the things that people worship their desire. People worship fame. People worship wealth. People worship all sorts of things. Some of these things are not actually tangible things. They might be imaginary, and people actually worship this. So falling into idol worship is not restricted to bowing down in front of an idol that has a calvin or a shape in natural sense, but all of the forms of associating of partners beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what is intended by this. Allah told us in another verse of the Quran, particularly in Surah An-Nisa also. Allah said, Alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab yu'minuna bil jibti wa taghut. That's what the one we mentioned. Then he said, Alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab yashtaruna ad-dalala wa yuriduna an tadillu as-sabil. I wanted to see people who were given a part of the book, the Al-Kitab also, who have purchased dalala. They purchased fallacy. They purchased going astray. They purchased falsehood. وَيُرِيدُونَ أَن تَضِلُّوا السَّبِيلَ. They also love that you also will go astray the way they have actually gone astray. So they make every effort to push you into that which they are actually falling into. Remember, we mentioned in the case of the Yahud that one of the greatest calamity that actually befell them was that they were people who were given knowledge and guidance, but they acted contrary, and because of that, Allah brought them debased. So when they see the believers who enjoy a similar guidance and knowledge, they also hope that you would not also take to guidance the same way they did not take to guidance, and they were led and they were actually debased, so that you would also be like them. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. يُرِيدُونَ أَن تَضِلُّوا السَّبِيلَ. And another verse of the Quran, Allah told us about them. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ يَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ. Haven't you seen the people who claim to believe in that which had been revealed to you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِ. They also claim to believe in that which was revealed before you of the books. يُرِيدُونَ إلى الطاغوت. You see them intending. You see them to order the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَدْ أُمِرُوا أَن يَكْفُرُوا بِهِ. Even when they had been commanded to disbelieve in this tawagit. وَيُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَن يُضِلَّهُمْ ضَلَالًا بَعِيدًا. Shaitan only intends by this to lead them astray. The point we're saying here is Tawheed is critical. And part of this is to establish the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created us and has power over us and all of that which exists. This is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And the second is to establish the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who has the right of worship and servitude. Let us know that it's not sufficient that somebody claims faith or his faith becomes perfect and complete by mere establishing or believing in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him and he has power over all things. In fact, the Yahud, the Nasara, and the Mushrikun, and a good handful of the Kuffar generally have believed in similar things. Which means that Mujarrad Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, mere believing in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all things and has power over all things, does not make one a believer, does not make one a Muslim. Rather, it is to establish this and to also give servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And amongst that is what? Referring judgments to him. Many times today, people lay claim to Islam, but they do not want to take the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find someone who wants to go into marriage. She believes and she prefers to take marriage to the courts. She wants the customary court marriage. She prefers to go to the high court and go to the registry for a court that is for a marriage that is established and very and authentified and registered by the laws other than the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you ask her why. She says because she knows the provision of the Sharia will give the man the right to perhaps think of marrying another wife later in the future. And I do not want him to do that. So the only way I can secure myself and secure this marriage is to take the law to other than the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is exactly what the verse is addressing. Haven't you seen those who lay claim to faith? يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَحَاكَمُوا إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ. Would you prefer the judgment of the disbelievers? And you've claimed to be a believer, and you say you're a Muslim, you've laid claim to faith, and yet you prefer to take judgment to other than Allah. So meaning you consider the judgment of Allah and Allah's provision and His injunctions regarding this part of your life as not fair to you. So many are examples of such, where people act contrary to the claim of, or to the fact, they act contrary to that which they claim to have actually believed in regarding the provisions of Islam. They are protect us. So being a Muslim requires establishing all of these things. Requires establishing the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things and the one who has power of all things. That's the first, rububiyyah. I would say that is not unique to Muslims alone. Even these believers have faith in this. They believe in the existence of a supreme being, of a God, and who has power over all things. But that does not make one a believer until one proceeds to know that the one who created me is the only one who has the right of worship. And I know what worship means. And I give worship to him alone. And I do not associate any with him in worship. Amongst this act of worship is referring judgment to him alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And knowing that he is the only one who has the right to give judgment, and it is only his laws and set of judgment and Sharia that I should follow as a believer. So, having mentioned all of these similar verses talking about very similar thing, upon the same topic, haven't you seen those who were given the book who claim to have faith in Allah and who take judgment to other than Allah? Haven't you seen those who were given the book who lay claim to faith and yet they purchase falsehood and they intend that you also go astray just like they had also gone astray? See, all of these verses talk about the Ahlul Kitab, particularly the Yahud, and that which they hope for among the believers. And why are we reading these verses? Because as Muslims, there's a tendency to fall into these errors, just like they also did. That's why the scholars will tell us that whoever among our scholars also falls into atrocities, or who acts contrary to what knowledge is expected to have made him act according to, then he has a part of Judaism in him. Whoever among the scholars who falls into crimes and heinous crimes and atrocities, whoever among the scholars who falls into this, then we will say he has a similitude with the Yahud. And whoever amongst among the believers who are dedicated to worship, among the Ubad, those who are Abid, who are known to be not necessarily scholars, but people who are devotees to the deen, when you find them also falling into errors and in crimes, then as liking such a person to the Nasara, the Christians regarding that, those who act upon ignorance and who seek to to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without having sufficient knowledge. So we go on in this same chapter, and he brought a hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that hadith was reported by Thawban radiallahu anhu. Thawban, who happened to be from among the free slaves of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال إن الله زوى لي أرض فرأيت مشارقها ومغاربها. Allah gathered the whole of the earth and brought it to my presence, and I saw the east and the west of it. I saw the whole of it. Allah made it easy for me to sight it. Wa inna ummati sayablugu mulkuha ma zawali minha. And my ummah, this my ummah of Islam, the Rasul was talking about that while he was alive at his own time, never having witnessed in actual reality the spread of Islam to all of the parts of the world like we see today. So the Rasul was actually saying this, and it was a prophecy that finally came true, that established the nubuwwah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said that this my ummah is actually going to spread from across the east and to the far west, to the far east and the far west of the world. And I was given the two cans. I was given two treasures, and these treasures, al-ahmar wal-abyad. I was given the white treasure and I was given the red treasure. وَإِنِّي سَأَلْتُ رَبِّي لِأُمَّتِي أَلَّا يُهْلِكُهَا بِسَنَةٍ بِعَامَّةٍ وَأَلَّا تُسَلِّطَ عَلَيْهِمْ عَدُوًّا مِنْ سِوَى أَنفُسِهِمْ فَيَسْتَبِيهِ بِبَيْدَتِهِمْ وَإِنَّ رَبِّي قَالَ يَا مُحَمَّدْ إِذَا قَضَيْتُ قَضَاءً فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَرَدُّ وَإِنِّي أَعْطَيْتُكَ لِأُمَّتِكَ أَلَّا أهلكهم بسنة عامة وألا أسلط عليهم عدوا من سوى أنفسهم فيستبيح ببيضتهم ولو اجتمع عليهم من أقطارها حتى يكون بعضهم يهلك بعضا وسبب بعضهم بعضا. رواه برقاني في صحيح. طيب, this hadith, which it brought also in this same context, discussing the fact that you would find in this ummah those who would finally follow the path of falsehood. Not only mere falsehood, but falsehood in the peak of it. Shirk. You find in this ummah those who will fall into shirk. So the question is, why are the Muslims disunited at this time of ours? Why is it that we find mayhem, we find disorderliness in a lot of Muslim lands in the world today? Why is it that when you put on the TV, the news you hear from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Sudan, from Somalia, from Syria, and these are supposed to be Arab, Muslim land. Why is it that you hear all sorts of news about them, things that are disheartening? We say, because it's only a prophecy that must be fulfilled. And rather, لِيَهْلِكَ مَنْ هَلَكَ عَنْ بَيِّنَةٍ وَيَحْيَى مَنْ حَيَّ عَنْ بَيِّنَةٍ. So that those who will go astray by these trials and these tribulations will go astray, and those who will see them and say, Sadaqa Rasul, Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islam. And those who will see this happening, I will say, so the Rasul taught that these things will occur, and here are they occurring, which would only increase them in faith. لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَا إِيمَانِهِمْ. The people will be guided more and further by these events and these occurrences, and the people who are by these trials will go further astray. They are not make us among those who would go astray. Why is it? Because these are things that have been prophesied to actually occur, and when they occur, it is only expected of believers to only that should only increase them in faith, and an affirmation of the fact that this is the millah and this is the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually decreed and chosen for us. And we thank Allah upon that. And also added to that is not to be a partaker in the fitna that have been prophesied. Do not find yourself, make an effort not to find yourself on the other side of this historical event, of these occurrences when they occur. Do not be on the path where you would be a victim of the negative consequences of these events that had been foretold by the Rasul Sallallahu to finally occur. So from amongst it is that he told us, I was given two treasures, the red treasure and the white one. What is the red treasure? And that is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make Islam to spread and be established in Rome, in the Roman Empire. So that's it was this the scholars explained to us that which is actually connoted by the red treasure is the cans of the Caesar, because what was popularly known about the kingdom and the crown of the Caesar at that time of the Caesar was that it was made of gold, and that was likened to the red treasure. Well, Abiyat and the white, which was likened to and that was the Persian Empire, which Islam also ruled over the lands that were ruled by the Persian Empire, and that was Wakusuruhuma Wabiladuhuma. Both of them, the Council of Kisra or Council of Caesar, that the treasure of the Caesar and that of the Kisra, the ruler of Persia. This went to pass right in Islamic history that we are all aware of. Today, all of these lands are known to be lands that are that were ruled by Islam and lived into today people who lay claim to Islam. وَأَلَّا يُسَلِّطَ عَلَيْهِمْ عَدُوًّا مِنْ سِوَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. The Rasul also asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this incident. The Rasul was asking Allah, and do not make the enemies, do not set against my ummah enemies that would actually go all out against them and overpower them to such an extent that they would be erased or be considered to almost not be existing. Do not set against my ummah an enemy that would take them away and take their existence away from them. وَإِنَّ رَبِّي قَالَ. The Rasul said, my Lord said to me, O Muhammad, إِذَا قَضَيْتُ قَضَاءً فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَرَدُ. When I decree a matter, there is nobody can act contrary. No contrary event is expected of it. When I decree a matter, it must come to pass. وَإِنِّي أَعْطَيْتُكَ لِأُمَّتِكَ. I have given you for your ummah. أَلَّا أُهْلِكُهُمْ بِسَنَةٍ بِعَامَّةٍ. That they would not become perished by drought, neither would they become perished by a famine or the lack of by a single occurrence, and they will become non-existent. وَأَلَّا يُسَلِّطْ عَلَيْهِمْ عَدُوًّا مِنْ سِوَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. And I will not send an external enemy to them to actually conquer them and take their honor and power away from them, or take them away from existence. So the scholars say here, we find an evidence in this hadith that there will never be a time that you will not find Muslims in existence in this world to the end of time. There will always be. So the fear should not be, like you find some people who say with passion and emotions, if we don't come together, let's not talk about people's shortcomings. Let nobody condemn anybody. Just let's be united so that we can fight a common enemy. So we can only be united upon the truth. The Muslims would only be united upon the truth, and that is the only thing that can unite them. So it's not just to be united in the name of let's just be united, even when those who find amongst those who lay claim to Islam, those who fall in outright shirk or who do outright the opposite of the provision of Islam. So this would not be termed unity. And if you ask why, they say, okay, because if we don't do this, we might not be in existence. Say this religion had been protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will never be a time that would exist in this world, except there will be Muslims who would be upon the haqq, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually promised his Rasul. So what is important for you and I is to make sure that we are amongst those Muslims who are upon this haqq, and who are not from those who would be on the other side of the law, who will be acting contrary to the provisions of Islam. And to crown it all, the Rasul went ahead in another riwayah of this hadith to tell us that at the end of time, we'll find the people who would come, or ta'ifa min ummah, وإنما أخاف على أمتي أئمة المضلين. And the only thing I fear for my ummah are scholars that would lead astray. وإذا وضع السيف في أمتي لم يرفع عنها إلا يوم القيامة. The moment the sword is unshielded, is brought out in my ummah, it will not be returned back until the day of Qiyamah. ولا تقوم الساعة حتى يلحق قبائل من أمتي بالمشركين. The hour will not come until you find a part of my ummah who would be relating with the idol worshippers, who would not be other than to be considered as idolaters. And that was the essence why this hadith was cited in this chapter. Because the Rasul said outrightly, the hour will not come except you find in my ummah those who you would actually just consider to be idol worshippers. They would lay claim to Islam, but they will not be doing anything other than that which the idol worshippers do. وحتى تعبد قبائل من أمتي أوثان وإنه سيكون في أمتي كذابون ثلاثون. And it will be in my ummah 30 of them who would be considered as major liars, people who call to falsehood. كلهم يزعم أنهم نبي. Each of them will be laying claim to being a prophet. وأنا خاتم النبيين. And I'm the last and the seal of all of the prophets. لا نبي بعدي. There's no prophet after me. ولا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق. It will always be in my ummah a group of people who will be upon the truth. قال ابن عيسى ظاهرين ثم اتفق لا يضرهم من خالفهم حتى يأتي أمر الله. These people, this group we are discussing, or the Rasul is talking about here, are a people that will be upon the truth, and they would nothing will dissuade them upon this truth until the hour finally comes on the day of judgment. Also picked in this hadith is that whatever this ummah is agreed upon, whatever is considered to be an agreed upon matter in Islam or among the Muslims, is definitely from among that thing which is certainly the truth. Or let me put it in another perspective. This ummah cannot be united upon falsehood, because there would always be in this ummah a portion, like the Rasul has explained, a portion of people who are known to be zahirina al-haq. So if they are within this ummah and they agree with other groups upon a matter, then that matter must be the truth. So the moment you find the ummah of Islam agreed upon something, then that thing is certainly the truth. But when they differ, then of course what is expected of us is to search for what the truth is in actual sense amongst those things they have differed upon. May Allah make this better understood than it had been presented. We've only just decided to treat a topic under the heading in the book Kitab al-Tawheed, Babu Ma Ja'a fi anna ba'da hadhi umma ya'budu al-awthan. The chapter discussing the fact that a part of this ummah are definitely going to fall into idol worship. And we said at the beginning of the discussion that the chapter is only emphasizing further the importance of Tawheed and the fact that the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has denied the gift of Tawheed is as if the person has actually lost the essence of existence totally, because there's no benefit in existence in this world if one does not unify worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also explain further that this Tawheed is the essence of Islam itself, and that is actually why we call ourselves Muslims, and that we are expected to be Muslims by choice. Of course, everything submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taw'an wa karaha, whether willingly or unwillingly, everything is submissive to Allah. But Muslims are called Muslims because they are a people who have chosen to submit to Allah by choice, willingly. So aside the fact that we all as creatures are bound to submit to Allah by default, a group of creatures of Allah amongst the human who have also decided to submit to Allah willingly now are called Muslims, and that's why they will be rewarded. May Allah count us among judgment. So if this is what we know, then we say that also implies that we must take to that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded, because this is a willful submission to Allah, and we should not query the injunctions of Allah, neither should we make an attempt to modify the provisions of the Sharia. Neither can we also make effort to want the provisions of the Sharia just to suit our desire. Rather, it is us who would conform and modify ourselves to adjust to the provisions of the Sharia and to submit to Allah in his commandments and in his injunctions. We also mentioned here, we cited a couple of verses of the Quran where we pick lessons from that which had occurred to the Ummah, to the nations before us, particularly the Ahlul Kitab, and in specific the Yahud, the Jews. And we said about them that they were a people who were given knowledge and guidance, but they acted contrary to the provisions of the knowledge and guidance which they were given. And because of that, Allah punished them, and they became a people that are makduban alayhim, people that would always have Allah's anger upon them. And because of this, that led them further into hasad, into envy. So if you talk about envy and what envy can cause, the rift between the Ahlul Kitab and the Jews and the Muslim nation today is basically a rift that is established upon envy, just like the kind of rift that exists between Shaitan and the children of Adam, alayhi salatu wasalam. Shaitan was denied all of the privileges he had. He was debased and cursed by the virtue of the fact that he envied Nabina Adam by the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him. And that envy led him to further ruin. He didn't obey Allah when Allah instructed him and gave him an outright injunction. So this tells us how envy has historically had, what's that cost in history over the existence of man. So the Jews see the Muslims, the Muslim nation, as a nation to be envied, and they act accordingly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about them that they are a people who wish yuriduna an tadillu sabil. They always wish and hope that you go astray, just like they also went astray and they became cursed and makdub. They wish and hope that you would also deny knowledge that was given to you, and you act contrary to that which Allah had given to you, so that you will be like them. May Allah protect us from such. We started 3 of those verses that look alike, like that in Surah An-Nisa. Alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab, alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban yashmuruna ad-dalala, alam tara ila alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab yu'minuna bil jibti wat taghut. And the third one, alam tara ila alladhina yaz'umuna annahum amanu bima unzila ilayka wa ma unzila min qablik yuriduna an yatahakamu ila taghut. In all of this, we also emphasize the fact that submission to be given to Allah and judgment should be referred to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of our endeavors. So even if we live in a part of the world today, probably where the Islamic rule is not totally established, we can't find Islamic courts and the likes and being established and enforcing some of those laws, and one should not live in self-deceit, then to go contrary to the provisions of the Sharia. And I brought a typical example about even marital issues and discord, where someone would prefer to take judgment to order than a court that would judge, or a people who would judge and advise according to the laws of the Sharia. I would prefer to go to that which is customary, in quotes, and knowing fully well that the provisions of these laws would only suit his desire, even when they are against that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded. So in all, it is for us to be Muslims as expected to be submissive to Allah. Submit and enter into Islam wholeheartedly and totally submitting to Allah, and do not follow the path of Shaitan. For Shaitan is an open enemy to us. Inshallah, we'll stop here, and we hope there's maybe 1 or 2, I don't know.
No, man, if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask quickly. We'll take it as no questions. So, Ustadh, we can conclude, shall.
So, alhamdulillah, if there are no questions, there are possible interpretations, but we hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all we've said understandable to us, and then make it evidence for us and not against us. From what is worthy of emphasis is that when we learn, we should make all efforts to put into practice that which we learn. We mentioned the statement of Sufyan bin Uyayna, rahimahullah, when he said, "Man fasada min ulama'ina, falahu shibhun min al-yahud." Whoever amongst those who have gained knowledge amongst us, who finally act contrary to knowledge, then he has a similitude to the Jews. وَمَنْ فَسَدَ مِنْ عُبَادِنَا فَلَهُ شِبْهٌ مِنَ النَّصَارَى. And whoever amongst us who takes to worship, having no knowledge, but takes to worship and falls into errors and sins, then he's just like a Christian who tries to worship Allah without knowledge. May Allah protect us from this. That is why we see in Surah Al-Fatiha, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Allah do not make us from amongst those whom her anger is upon, neither is it or to be among those whom Allah's or whom have actually gone astray. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.